Hey, what's up guys, it's Chris, and today I wanted to talk about the 5 biggest handstand mistakes. That way you can improve and perfect this skill. Now thanks for being patient also with my uploading. I know it's been a while since I posted my last video. I had a bunch of tests and projects and those kind of caught up to me and really cramped my time. But I did get to do this, so check this clip out. And that is from the show American Ninja Warrior. I was only an obstacle tester, I'm not on the actual show, but I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity to get to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that clip, but without further ado, let's get started. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can go into the handstand, such as your traditional lunge, from a tucked planche, or even from a press. But today we're gonna primarily focus on the traditional lunge, which is the most common. Alright, so the first mistake is actually quite simple to fix, but it's very common among beginners, and that is not kicking hard enough to get into the handstand. Now, it's a good thing to practice figuring out where the balancing point is, but it's definitely better to kick harder than to kick softer, because if you overkick, you can at least walk it out or balance using your wrists, and we'll talk about that later. So in order to practice fixing this, make sure you're just really kicking hard in that lunge. Alright, so the second mistake is actually the biggest and I think the most common mistake that I see with handstands, and that is craning your neck or tilting your head back way too far to try and see the ground. While this might feel like a natural tendency, it causes your back to arch, keeps you from staying tight, and it really makes it harder to balance in the handstand. Not to mention, it's really uncomfortable to hold for a long time. Instead, your head should be in a relatively neutral position with your ears lining up with your arms. And in this position, you should be looking through the top of your eyes at your hands instead of using your whole face to look at the ground. Alright, the third mistake is arching your back in the handstand. And it's similar to the second mistake, except it's still possible to arch your back even with your head in a neutral position. Now, arching your back makes it very difficult to stay tight and maintain balance unless you're specifically trying to arch your back to get kind of a breakdancer move to do the hollow back. But that's a totally different skill than the regular handstand. Instead of being in the arch position, your body should be in the hollow position, which is just the inverse of the arch, with your head in a neutral position, your glutes flexed, and your core activated. To practice strengthening this hollow position, try this. Lay on your back, put your hands on your quads, bend at the hips, and bring your shoulders and feet off the ground, only using your lower back to balance. See if you can hold this position for up to a minute, and once you get there, you probably have a pretty strong hollow position. Keep practicing. Okay, really fast, here's an additional tip for mistake number 3. A lot of times people like to use the wall to help themselves get comfortable being upside down and on their hands, but they do it facing away from the wall, and this can actually cause your back to arch and possibly form some bad habits. So instead, I encourage you to do it by facing the wall, putting your hands on the ground, and then walking your feet up the wall, and this is a great way to build some strength and practice that hollow position. Also, remember to keep your body tight because it's really easy to become relaxed when you're using the wall. Alright, the fourth mistake is not properly using your hands or your wrists in the handstand. It's easy to think of the move as pure balance, but it actually requires a lot of wrist strength. So you want to make sure that your fingers are spread far apart, slightly bent, and then you're going to use them to push into the ground to keep yourself from falling too far forward. In order to help you build some wrist strength and shoulder strength, you can try what's called a tucked planche, where you're going to put your hands on the ground and then bring your knees to your chest and lean forward. Now, if you find this difficult, you can instead try what's called a frog stand, putting your knees on your elbows and then slowly transitioning by pulling your knees off of your elbows until you can hold it. Alright, this brings us to mistake number 5, which is simply forgetting to flex the important muscle groups. This causes your body to be less rigid and can actually make it harder to balance. So instead, you want to make sure that you're pushing through your shoulders and flexing your glutes. Now this kind of ties together your other points between the hollow position and pushing through the wrists, but this is going to really make a huge difference in your handstand. Now once you get really good at your handstands, you can practice different variations, go into the move different ways, or even do flips out of your handstands. In summary, we want to make sure that we're kicking hard enough because at least this way we can balance out by moving around or using our wrists. Number 2, we want to make sure that our head placement is in a relatively neutral position, looking at our hands through the top of our eyes. Number 3, we want to make sure that we're practicing the hollow position, that way we can implement it when we do our handstands. We don't want to arch our backs. Number 4, we also want to make sure that we're using our wrists to push against the ground to help us balance out. It's okay to walk, but if you want to hold a steady handstand, you're going to have to train those wrists. And number 5, you want to make sure that you're flexing your glutes and pushing through the shoulders to help give your body the most rigid stance it can be in. Alright, that's about it for the video, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video and you learned something new. And if you did, feel free to leave a like below, that helped me out a ton. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my channel, that way you'll be notified when future content comes out. And as always, I'll see you next time and stay flippin' awesome. Peace.